What's up, kids? Want to learn something today? Well, you are barking up the wrong goddamn... I've been goofing around with 1 to 4 kind of jazzy, riffs to get from the 1 chord to the 4 chord. So on like that blues shuffle, I just made a real quick track so you guys would have a reference of what I was talking about. I have no idea what I'm talking about. But what we're doing is this is in the key of E. And I wanted to show you guys, there's this one thing, and I don't think I played it very clean that first time, but I was goofing around with it, and I came up with this thing, so we're going. We're trying to get to that 4 chord. And in the key of E, I came up with this. And that's not necessarily exactly how I'd phrase it every time, but it's this. And I'll play it really, really slow. Now, like I said, I won't play it the exact same way, but that's the idea, And I'm not one of those guys that knows a lot of scales, and I don't know modes, and I'm not saying that's a bad idea. I think it's a great idea. To know scales and modes, but I tend to think more shapes wise. So the 3 shapes that we're looking at is this shape, and this shape. And those are all based off of really chords I play too. So this shape here is, you can kind of see, what is that? Let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's so funny. I never count frets. I never have. So it's always weird for me to actually count frets. For me, it's like, well, you mash your finger about right here, and then there's a speed bump. So when you slide over that speed bump, you're going to be up a step or so. But don't hit that next speed bump, because then you'll mess up your suspension. The shape. It's based on... That's a shape I love, just a chord that I dig in the key of E. It sounds pretty. But if I move it down a whole step, what it's giving me is the root of the chord of E there on the G string at the 9th fret. And then it's giving me a 2 or a 9. And then up top, it's giving me that flat 7 tonality. So... that's the shape. So that's the very first shape, and those are really the first 3 notes. I just slide into it. And then the next shape is really, if you want to look at it really simply, it's just a C sharp major chord, or I should say major arpeggio. But what it's based on, and I won't go real deep into the chord itself, but it's based on a 13 flat 9. And it's another chord that I really love, but what I always pick out of it, and it really, if you study Robin Ford at all, you'll notice he does a lot of stuff that's kind of based on that shape, but more around a diminished scale. So I kind of stole this from him, but I simplified it into just the 3 notes. Because it sounds cool over E, because it gives you what would be considered the 13, and then the 3rd of E. So those are both, those are both inside. The outside note is that flat 9, that F. So that's where you get your outside, because this is an outside. This is an outside. But this is. So that's where you get a little bit of outside. And then the next shape is really what I'll do sometimes is I'll move, like this shape, I'll move it down a minor 3rd. And I don't know why that works, it just does, and I'm sure there's theory behind it that would explain it, but I don't know. But it's the same exact thing where it's like, okay, this sounded cool. I thought, God, that would sound so great, but it was kind of hard to finger it. So I just started doing it here. So that's... So if you really listen to just to that 4 chord, that's how it's working. Now, one thing I do want to keep in mind is because we're shuffling, when I do that riff, I'm playing it straight. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and so it's 16th notes being played straight. So keep that in mind. And how you phrase it is kind of up to you, and it can be really random. But I'm going to play it really, really slow so you guys can check it out. I'll do it one more time. And you can add or take away notes. You could go. That's up to you. It just depends on how it falls under your fingers, but. And obviously be really careful not to, you know, let those notes ring into each other because they really are just shapes. So you don't want to let them obviously ring into each other. But yeah, that's the riff. And like I said, it's really just to get you to that 4 chord. So here, I'll turn the track back on and see how much I can screw it up. I got left hanging. I'm showing you this so that you guys can make it your own. It's like I don't necessarily want you to learn the riff verbatim, but I mean, if you do, then great. But it's really just to get you into that mindset of looking at shapes a little bit and realizing how easy it is. I'm just sliding into it. This is just another one of my kind of weird, you know, train of thought things where I was like, man, I better turn on a couple cameras and see what you guys think about these types of ideas. And you know, it just helps me to do things like this because it's, like I said, it's hard for me to tell somebody in an email, well, I don't know any scales. I do, but I don't. And I don't know any modes. I sort of do, but I don't. I do have shapes that I like, and then I just kind of chromatically sneak around until something actually sounds okay. Let me know in the comments below what you thought. I'd love to hear how that riff worked out for you. And as always, I really appreciate you guys tuning in and putting up with my silliness, and I will see you next time.